And hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. And I would like to simply get started. So I will share my screen and we can simply get going. If you have any questions, you can ask them during the presentation and also in the Discord channel right after or during the meeting, and I will monitor that and I will answer. So 42%, this is the number that I want you to remember. And what is 42%? 42% is the percentage of CloudFormation configuration file that contained at least one instance configuration. And this was done in a research by Palo Alto's threat intelligence team 2 years ago when infrastructure as code kind of started to gain traction, which means that if you are using infrastructure as code, you probably have at least one insecure configuration. And we are going to talk about in the next few minutes on what are the risks and how you can mitigate them quite easily and add them into your pipeline. So hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Bendet. I am the head of product management at Checkmarx. I'm leading our static engines, SaaS, and kicks that we are going to talk about today. Prior to that, as already mentioned, I was in HP. I also founded my own startup called Dokito. I was in Time to Know, which is an Israeli startup. And now for the last 2 years, I am in Checkmarx. So what are we going to talk about today? First, I'm going to give you what we are going to talk about what is infrastructure as code, just to make sure that everybody is aligned. I'm going to talk to you about what is Kicks, how can you start using it today. I'm going to show you a live demo, and then I'm going to talk about some of the new stuff that we see. So before drilling into specifically what is infrastructure as code, I do want to talk with you about the world that we are now living in. So we are living in a world where cloud native technologies or cloud native applications is becoming quite common, and we see more and more organizations starting to develop using that. Here you can see one definitions that are plenty of other definitions, but you can see that cloud native technologies empower organizations to build and run scalable application using modern technologies, including containers, service meshes, microservices, immutable infrastructure, and declarative API. And if an application is cloud native, then you can say that it was specifically designed to provide consistent development in an automated manner across the different clouds, and in many other cases, also a combination of them. However, what is the difference of cloud native technologies or cloud native applications? The fact that cloud native applications, their source code, the application source code, is only one piece of the puzzle, only one building block of the entire building. And what are the rest of the building block? What are the rest of the pieces? Then cloud applications are managing everything as code. And this is a term that we hear more and more. And it actually refers to other areas of the application or of the system that is now being saved as code. It can be obviously still application source code, configuration as code, network as code, containers as code, orchestrators, and as we are going to talk about today, infrastructure as code. So Forrester, which is one of the leading analyst firms in the world, was referring to that earlier this year. And what were they saying is that they defined that not as everything is code, but going beyond the traditional definition of code, where they are saying that developers are now using infrastructure as code to define cloud configuration. I will go back and double click on this sentence. And you need to look for SaaS tools to scan this new type of code. So let's take a minute and analyze what does it mean. It means the developers, which were up till now very focused on developing the application logic, now are also responsible for defining the cloud configuration, the infrastructure. This is something new. This is an additional responsibility that they now have. And we are going to talk about the risks of having such a cloud misconfiguration and why you should be aware of that. And you need to look for the tools to scan for that. So now let's talk about what is infrastructure as code. So infrastructure as code is the process of provisioning software through machine-readable definition file rather than doing that interactively or manually. So if I would talk to you about cloud infrastructure or infrastructure in general a couple of years ago, the process would be like that. The development team would finish developing, finish testing, they would come to central IT and ask for the relevant infrastructure. They would say that they need database, they need 5 application servers, they need a load balancer and so on. And a couple of weeks later, everything was available and the development team was able to deploy their application. However, infrastructure as code takes this whole process and automates it in a very elegant way at the speed of DevOps, which means that the benefits of using infrastructure as code is, first of all, speeding up the configuration, as we just discussed, reducing the cost because you don't need anything, you just have the definition files, and also allows you to eliminate the inconsistencies, because the way that I like to explain is that you can look at infrastructure as code simply as the recipe for creating the cake, which in this case is your infrastructure. And rather than doing the recipe all the time by yourself, you simply give it to the infrastructure as code tool and they bake the cake for you based on the recipe that you have. So this is kind of concludes the intro part. I see that we don't have any questions. So let's continue. And now that we understand what is cloud native, what is infrastructure as code, I would like to explain to you what are the risks, what are the security risks of infrastructure as code. So as we started in a research that was done back in 2020 by Unit 42 threat intelligence team from Palo Alto, they analyzed over 200,000 different infrastructure as code templates, and the results, the analysis was very troubling to anyone who cares about this application. You can see the numbers here. 48% of the S3 buckets did not have any server-side encryption. 76% had port SSH exposed, and I will explain to you why it creates a risk for your application. And also 48% did not have any S3 bucket with logging enabled. Going back for a second for the SSH, we know based on findings that we have is that SSH port, which is mostly used for remote debugging, there are special dedicated bots that scan for public IPs, then scan all the relevant ports. Once they find an open port, they simply brute force the password, gain access, and can take over your virtual hardware or virtual machines remotely by simply leaving port 22 open. And obviously, this is just one example, and we'll talk about some other example as well. So, however, this is when we started a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, the same misconfiguration and the same risks are existing today. In an analysis that we have done in Checkmarks, based on the information that we got from our users and customers in Q3, the same and other misconfigurations still appear today. These are the top 5 that we saw in the analysis that we have done. So first of all, Docker file is missing user instruction, which means that the container can run as root. HTTP port 80 is left open. We will talk about what does it mean. ELB port is also being exposed. EC2 instance has public IP, and also S3 bucket doesn't have any server-side encryption. And each one of those possesses quite a lot of risks and can provide an additional or a new attack vector to malicious attackers once your application reaches production. So this is the risks. How does everything look like? This is just a typical cloud architecture. We have the VPC, the virtual private cloud, and we have a couple of WAF, web application firewalls. We have elastic load balancing. We have a couple of application instances and several databases really based on the use case that you have. You've probably seen other architecture, obviously more complex, simpler, but the general idea remains the same. How will an infrastructure as code file look like? So this is just one example of an AWS cloud formation that deploys an elastic bean stack over AWS. It's simply a file, a definition files that explain what exactly you need to deploy. So now that we understand the word cloud native infrastructure as code, we understand the risks. Let me explain to you how easy it is to prevent those risks. And now allow me to introduce KICS. So KICS stands for Keeping Infrastructure as Code Secure. It is an open source project powered by checkmarks, and I will explain in a couple of slides what does it mean powered by checkmarks, that scans and finds misconfiguration and potential vulnerabilities in infrastructure code. So just like any other solution, for example, SaaS scanners that scan application source code, open source analysis that scan open source libraries, KICS scans infrastructure as code and finds the relevant misconfiguration and potential vulnerabilities. You can see the list of infrastructure as code provider that it supports. So AWS CloudFormation, Ansible, Kubernetes, Terraform, Docker. We also added support for Azure Resource Manager, Helm charts, and if you are using those, and recently added Azure Blueprints, which is kind of the evolution of Azure Resource Manager. The way that we have built that is that what KICS checks, we call that queries. Queries is simply the list of policies that we check, and we defined a set of categories, 12 different categories that are relevant for infrastructure as code. And you can see them here. I will share with you all the links to the repository so you can see everything yourself. But for example, access control, encryption, network and firewall, secret management, supply chain, and so on. Overall, KICS support has over 2,000 different queries, which makes KICS the most in the market in regards to the amount of queries that it supports. Before seeing KICS slide, I do want to take one additional minute and explain to you what is a misconfiguration. We talked about SSH port that can be left open, where in this case we have another example. You can see here on the right, we have a Terraform file for AWS, defines a security group for a resource, and you can see that the definition has port 78 till 91 TCP being open, which means that HTTP port 80 is left open, which means that there is a possibility of having unencrypted data running through your application and risking your users to any man-in-the-middle attack or any other attacks that exist today. Where can you have, or where can KICS help you? And we will see that live in just 1 minute. So first of all, every developer can run KICS locally. Simply fetch the Docker file, the Docker container, and run it. I will show it to you in exactly 20 seconds. And then they can do that before any push, before any pull request, before any commit. You can also integrate with the source control of your choice. So it can be on any pull request or on any build process that you have. You can integrate it with the CI/CD, and I will show it to you today, one example with GitLab. And you can also have it as a security check when moving between the different stages. So if you are moving from testing to staging to pre-prod to production, you can make sure that your infrastructure doesn't break, just like any other test that you are running. One last tip from my side on where to start. If you are starting fresh with infrastructure as code security testing, I would recommend either doing that in the pipeline or in the security check, making sure that at least the end of the pipeline is covered. And now I want to show it to you live. Okay. Okay, so I am starting with kics.io. Kics.io is the main website. Although it is from checkmarks, just like any other open source project, we keep it with its own brand. Everything that I just explained to you exists here. What do we support? What are the attributes? How can it help you? And it also has the links to everything that you need. First of all, the documentation website that has all the information that you need, including advanced configuration, how to write your own queries, and so on. And the second link is obviously the repository that everything exists there, so you can take a look and test it yourself. In the repository, in the documentation, you can see how easy it is to get running. The most simple way to have it up and running, and it usually takes approximately 3 minutes, is first of all to download the Docker image, the Docker container, and then execute the command, where the command is very simple. The basic execution, you simply need the path to the infrastructure as code files that you want, the Kix version, which queries to run, and how to output. Regarding output, I will show you 2 examples today. One is HTML and the other one is a JSON file, but other formats exist. And now I do want to show it to you live. So I will switch to my terminal. You should see it now. Should be enough. And the first command is fetching the Docker and the most updated and image Kix container. I just updated it this morning, so I am good. In general, we have a release every 2 weeks, so we always encourage you to run or to update with the latest version. And now what I will run is Kix on the same example of having HTTP port 80 left open, and the output format will be an HTML report. In general, Kix queries and quick scans are running rather fast. As you can see, by the time that I finish this sentence, it's already finished. And I can see here the result summary. So I have 7 high issues and 4 informational, and total 11. And now I want to show you the results. So I will quickly open the HTML report. There we go. And as you can see, now we have the HTML report. I can see all the metadata on the scan, where did it start, which Kix version, and so on. And I can also see the amount of vulnerability. This is clickable, so I can better understand where I have. And as you can see here, what I have is the first misconfiguration that Kix found. This is the name of the query, HTTP port open in Terraform. The category is network and firewall. I can see the description, and I can see what did Kix base this query on. In this case, this is coming from the Terraform itself. And I can also see some remediation advice. What is the expected versus what was found? So in this case, port 80 should not be open. And in this case, port 80 is open. And also a snippet of my infrastructure's code that shows exactly where I need to start the investigation. So this concludes the first part of the demo. Downloading the most updated Docker container of Kix and simply running it. What I want to show you now is how to implement it as part of your pipeline. In this case, I have an infrastructure code repository on GitLab. We have a couple of Terraform files here that deploys quite a lot of resources on AWS using Terraform. I do want to show you the pipeline editor and what we are doing. In this case, we are not using the Docker version, but we're using the Linux CLI. However, it's almost completely identical, where what we are doing here, the major change is that we are outputting to a JSON format. This is in order to be able to upload the JSON results as an artifact to the build itself. And also we are using an execution parameter, which says that fail on high, which means that my pipeline will fail if I will have any I misconfigurations. So now I would like to trigger a new pipeline. In general, it takes around 1 minute. Because I don't want to waste our time, I will just show you the previous pipeline that I just ran in preparation to this presentation. So what we can see here is that it failed, and I can also see the output, all the console that was provided by Kix. I can see that I have 20 high. You can see the rest. We have a total of 126. The results were saved to a result JSON, and I will show it to you as a job artifact. And it fails simply based on the execution parameter that we had. And now, if I want, what I can show you is the JSON output, which is similar to the HTML one, just in a JSON format. So you can see all the metadata and the list of queries that was found in this Kix execution. So this is just one example. If you want to see the rest of the integration that we already have, then it is available in our documentation side, and you can practically integrate Kix with any CI/CD that you want by simply leveraging either what we already offer or by executing it together with the CLI that we provide. Okay, so now going back to the presentation. Okay. So we are very close to the finish line here for today. So what is the Kix advantages? Obviously, there are quite a lot other infrastructure as code tools, both commercial and open source. First of all, Kix has the largest infrastructure as code coverage, both the amount of tools and the queries as we already saw. It is easily extensible. The query language is written on Rego on top of OPA, the Open Policy Agent, which is quite the standard these days. And it's very easy to start a new or to write your own queries and extend it based on the policy that you have in your company. Another thing, as I already showed you in the demo, presenting each query comes with its own what was found versus what was expected, and also helping you with some remediation advice and how to fix it. And the architecture itself is quite simple and robust. So when we need to add new capabilities, we can easily do that. And if you take a look at our repository, we are running rather fast and adding more and more capabilities and coverage and tools as we move along. Kix is open source, as I already mentioned. It means that you don't need anything from anyone. You just go to the repository. It's under the Apache 2.0, and you can download it. You can download the code. You can download the queries. You can download everything and have it up and running as you just saw. This is the link, github.com/checkmark/Kix. If you give it a try, I would appreciate the star. If there is something that is missing, please talk to us. You can open us an issue on GitHub. You can see the project, what we are working on. You can see the roadmap. And also, if you want to have live chat with us, then I just suggest that you go to Gitter. It's also available through our main GitHub page. So I will paste those links in the chat afterwards in Discord, but it is something that I do encourage you to just try, because it's open source and you don't need any special approval or license to have it up and running. I do want to show you some of the new stuff that we already have. So Kix is a service. This is something that is rather new. We introduced it last month, where what we have done is we have taken the Kix engine and put it behind a single landing page. So you won't even have to download anything. You just go online, upload your infrastructure's code, and you can get the report by email. So you can forward it to your colleague, to your manager, to your development team, and start understanding what is your current status. It is also available. If you go to the kix.io, on the right side, you will see try it now, and it will point you into Kix as a service. So I do encourage you to also check this out as well. One of the things that we have done, and we invested quite a lot, is making sure that Kix is certified. For those of you who are familiar with CIS, it stands for the Center of Internet Security. And just like OWASP or any other standard that exists today, it provides their benchmarks, provide best practices for secure configurations. So they are mostly focusing on secure configuration rather than the general application. And Kix 1.4 was actually certified for AWS Foundation, both level 1 and 2. So we are CIS certified, and this is something that is quite unique because Kix is the first infrastructure as code open source offering that is CIS certified. If you want to see more, it's already available on the CIS website, and it's definitely something that you can leverage as well. Regarding what or where we have invested this year and what is coming next. So Kix is now integrated into the commercial offering of checkmarks. This is AST. I just showed you Kix as a service. Regarding coverage, then we added Helm, Open API. We are also able to scan and to make sure that your API schemas are configured correctly. And as mentioned, we added the Azure stack with Resource Manager and with Azure Blueprints. We invested heavily in the quality, deployment, and improved reporting. And as you already saw, the plugins, so you can integrate and you can execute it from practically any CI/CD that exists today. What is coming next year? So first of all, we have a new capability to the engine that will allow you to generate a bill of material of your cloud resources. So by triggering Kix with a simple flag, it will just output all the resources that he finds as part of his execution. And you can see the list of all S3 buckets and practically any cloud resource that you have. Kix as a service, we would continue to improve it even further. Coverage, so Azure Blueprints, we just started, we want to improve. Google Deployment Manager, we already started to working on that, and also initial integration with Terraformer to help you identify infrastructure as code drifting. We also have a bunch of very nice integrations with Red Hat, HashiCorp, Terraform Cloud, and also Solvo Cloud, which is coming. And as always, we are investing in the quality of the engine and also improving based on the feedback that we get from you as our community and as our users and customers. We covered quite a lot, so I just want to remind everyone, Kix, keeping infrastructure as code secure, an open source engine and project provided and powered by checkmarks. It supports the top infrastructure as code tools with over 2,000 different queries, and the adoption is quite remarkable. We currently have over 430 downloads on Docker Hub, and we are on track to reaching 500,000 in less than 1 year since we originally started Kix. So I do encourage you, go to the documentation site, go to the website, go to our GitHub, give it a try, let us know what how you feel, how can it help you, and if something is missing, please let us know. And with that, I would like to thank everyone, and I will make sure to answer any questions that you asked in the chat. So Ethan, thank you very much. I'm right on time.